addressed the European Union Parliament, and in his, we will be actually listening to his address before actually. Let me just make sure that my things are connected here, and we will be actually listening to the address of Job Sikhala. I don't know, people were playing with my things here. Just a moment. So let's listen to the address. I will actually play the audio.
Of the European Union Parliament for inviting me to appear before you and make a presentation about my experience as one of those persons who have been beneficiaries of the activities of the Interparliamentary Union when I was being persecuted by the dictatorship and tyranny in Zimbabwe during the period when I was a member of parliament. The issue of human rights abuses that not only myself but several other political actors in Zimbabwe, including a number of members of parliament, is on public record on how many people have suffered on the hands of the regime in Harare. There are quite a number of many issues which the role the Interparliamentary Union and other international bodies played in protection of those people who have been in occupation of public offices after having been elected to represent the people. It is very saddening to hear the report from the previous speaker that at the present moment there is a global a number of more than 1,000 public officials, including members of parliaments, who are currently, whose cases are now being investigated by the Interparliamentary Union. It clearly demonstrates the level of persecution opposition members of parliament are facing in their countries. The current government in my country has taken extensive measures to restrict political participation in Zimbabwe. Democratic advocates are facing significant challenges and lack of safety and security. At the present, they are being subjected to considerable pressure and threats. My persecution by the regime in Harare is well documented. I have been arrested 70 times since I became a member of parliament in the year 2000. Yet, none of these arrests resulted in any conviction. I survived several assassination attempts, including a horrendous torture which I suffered in March 2003. During all these arrests, I would be tortured, battered, denied food, denied basic universal human rights, such as to be visited by my family, friends and colleagues. Observer missions carried out by international important bodies, such as the Interparliamentary Union. During the period of my previous persecution, and court trials attested to what I have gone through, the Interparliamentary Union showed ongoing support, not just when they sent an observer team, led by Justice Abdul Raham Kani from Botswana, to monitor the forced trial I faced during my lengthy pre-trial detention under Zimbabwe's current regime. They all strongly opposed the torture I suffered on the 3rd of March 2003. My picture is publicly displayed at the headquarters of the Interparliamentary Union in Geneva, describing in detail the torture I went through. I was in tears when I visited the IPU headquarters in May 2024. Soon after my release from persecution back home, when I visited the IPU Secretary General to see my pictures of torture being among many members of parliament who have gone through similar trials and tribulations displayed at the headquarters.
An emotional moment for Job Sikhala. We are dealing.
Thank you very much. I can proceed. I can proceed with Shamancy. History should remember that many people worldwide have endured and continue to face severe hardships in their pursuit of democracy and freedom for their countries and communities. The Interparliamentary Union, particularly its Committee on Human Rights, has played an important role in advocating for and protecting the rights of parliamentarians who are members of opposition political organizations throughout the world. The committee continues to address instances of persecution by undemocratic regimes around the world. The European Union Parliament, specifically this subcommittee on human rights, should follow the commendable example set by the IPU, taking decisive action to address instances of severe human rights violations perpetrated by authoritarian regimes against individuals supporting democratic movements who are regarded as political offenders or political criminals. I think you recently heard how my house was bombed in Zimbabwe on the 30th of August this year. When I was launching my biography book, Footprints in the Chains, The Life Story of Job Sikhala in South Africa, my 4 children were occupants of my house. As my wife had gone to attend the memorial service of my late aunt in our rural home at the time of the attack. The attack's objective was to target my children for assassination. The attack, up to present, has not been investigated.
Because
Recently, the regime, through its agents, carried out an act of planting explosives in my uncle's car in South Africa, the car which I was a passenger, with the intention to incriminate me and to be seen as if I was involved in criminal activity, and also to portray myself as a dangerous opposition leader in Zimbabwe. I urge the respected members of this esteemed committee to carefully observe and keep track of this case in order to understand the extent to which Zimbabwe's dictatorship is willing to go to suppress its opposition in an effort to continue holding on to power. I would like once again to urge this important committee to institute a European Parliamentary delegation to visit Zimbabwe and raise these concerns with the authorities in Harare. I also urge this
They are not
committee
authorities.
and
Those
also
are
the
banks.
European Parliament to urge the European Union ambassadors to Zimbabwe to raise issues of human rights abuses that are persistently and continuously taking place in Zimbabwe. An important European Parliamentary delegation visit to Zimbabwe will open up the international community about the human rights abuses both parliamentarians from the opposition political parties and also opposition political actors are facing in our country. This will go a long way in addressing this challenge of continued human rights abuses in my country. With these words, I would like again to express my profound gratitude for your invitation for me to appear before this esteemed committee. I thank you, honorable members of parliament.
Merci à vous de l'avoir fait. Thank you very much for doing that with so much precision. And I understand it's a very emotional issue. I'm not sure if you managed to hear me, but I did wanted to say that we also felt the emotional charge of doing this. But I think that what you've said or shown us today is that this is not an issue about support between two people who are carrying out the same job, but also about supporting democracy right throughout the world. And I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Hussein for 7 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Distinguished members of the European Parliament, it's an honor to address you on behalf of parliamentarians.
Well, this was, in short, the speech, a very, very emotional speech of Job Sikhala. At some point, he had to, he was emotional. I don't want to use the word. He had to break down because he's an unbreakable man. That is what the regime has been seeking to achieve. But the man is strong. I'm a typical example of a politician who is after saving his people. There are very, very few such kind of politicians in Zimbabwe. But Job Sikhala is a tried and tested leader. I think we need such a leader who has been through a lot to actually lead, because he will lead with understanding. He understands what torture is all about. Not just one experience. He understands being set up by a regime, explosives planted. He understands being actually tormented, tortured, and later on, that when you speak out, that to be criminalized, that characterizes the regime of Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. I think it's a big thank you to Job Sikhala for putting Zimbabwe once again on the international map and ventilating and exposing the realities of politicians in Zimbabwe. And I like it because he was not just, it wasn't about himself, but he reflected on what the regime is doing to Zimbabweans in general, but also being the perfect case study and reference to the current actually matter where ZANU-PF planted explosives through its Central Intelligence Organization in a foreign land. And looking at the extent of how low ZANU-PF can actually go, planting explosives in a foreign land, smuggling. We are dealing with criminals we are dealing with a heartless political institution that actually, when it comes to humanity, they have, I mean, it will be hard for people to believe that ZANU-PF really consists of people with a heart. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red